Welcome back to One Winning Pod. The Ravens lost. 25-27 against the Bills. In a game where they out-yardaged, never punted, but they did have 3 very costly turnovers that really just defined the game. And that's why we're not continuing to dance. That's why, we're not going to be able to see him slay the dragon against the Chiefs in Arrowhead. I was dreaming, and I'm sure everyone else here was dreaming for as well. Guys, we weren't together watching this, which makes me sad. I do think how much I would love to watch these games with you when we're not at the stadium together. But I understand the logistical challenges very, very much of why that doesn't happen. But I wish there was someone to give a hug to after that was all said and done.
Yeah, man, it's frustrating. There's no way to put it other than that. It feels in a lot of ways just the same exact way they lost the game last time. Last year, turnovers at not good times in the game. First half, the opposing offense comes out and puts some drives together, but then second half the defense figures them out, shuts them down. Offense drives, gets into position to threaten to take the lead, and then the turnovers happen. And they established the run better in this game than in previous games. So you could say from last year. So you can look at that as a positive. Lamar got the team in position to tie the game. You can look at that as a positive compared to last year. So, I mean, some incremental, improvements, sure, but ultimately not the most important one, which was the win. And here we are. We're going to have to wait at least another year for the next Ravens Super Bowl berth.
I feel like I don't have too much really to add. It's frustrating. It's one of those games that just you just felt like they were going to come away with the win. I was confident. I was confident pretty much the whole game until it wasn't, that we were going to come back. So yeah, the drop 2-point I think was well, okay, that's it. But up until that point, even going into it, I was we're going to come back. We're going to win. Don't sweat it. No problem. The Bills can't stop us. Only we could stop us. Well, we stopped us.
Kept doing it. I know.
Yeah.
Chris, we got to hear about your experience there. You kind of were understandably entrenched at the game while it was going on. So it's interesting to hear that you had that confidence. I'm curious, what it was like around you and all that good stuff. The whole vibes. Give us a little recap, a little travel vlog.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, it was a cool stadium. First time I've been to Highmark. Probably the only time I'm going to be at Highmark because they'll have the new one, not next year, but the following year. Found that out. Yeah, no, I mean, it's a cool.
Are you breaking news on the pod?
No, they're building it.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you meant a new kid. I was like,
no.
I just found that out next year. I was like, what?
That has not happened.
Sorry.
New stadium. Stadiums are not birthed, to my understanding. I don't think stadiums reproduce.
They have a really long gestation time, though. But
okay, sorry. Continue.
But wasn't expecting to go that direction.
But no. I mean, it's a cool stadium. It's obviously a very different, just different location and just setup and everything. Like MNC is definitely much more urban, right? It's weird, going it through the gates and everything. I feel like the outside of Highmark, it kind of reminds me of more of a concert venue, something like Jiffy Lube or any of the big outdoor concert venues. I feel like it's kind of like that. It's just very wide and just lots of space and everything. But yeah, 3 levels of seats and everything. I found out the upper levels bleachers for a good bit of them, which is now I'm not so surprised, I guess, that they're redoing it and probably gonna have real seats. But all that said, it was still fine. It wasn't uncomfortable or anything. But it was different. Weather was all not that bad. Buffalo fans, I know it gets cold up there and it gets snowy and everything, but honestly the weather is about the same in Maryland right now, so I don't really think that was a concern for the team. Wasn't for me. But yeah, no, I mean, vibes in the stadium and everything. I had a Ravens fan next to me. I was wearing a Hamilton jersey. I didn't catch his name. A shout out, whatever his name was. He was a cool dude, and I remember, high fiving him during the Bateman touchdown and everything, and the likely touchdown. He was just like, "Oh my god, this, oh." He was getting really hype, so that was cool. But yeah, no, the Bills fans around, like obviously we're cheering a bunch, and I think it's it's so funny. We probably do the same thing as Ravens fans of like when there's a call your way or like things are going good, like you're so happy and everything, and then you get like a penalty on your team, and you're just like, oh my god, that was a terrible call. Like I can't believe these refs. They've like bought in everything, and I'm just
Sounds
over
like the
there
bank.
like, yeah. So more of the same and everything. But but yeah, no, I mean like we weren't heckled or anything. Like it was fine. Yeah, like I said, like the vibes for me, like I was good. Like it was a little cold, a little flurries and everything, but like I was good. I was coming out of it. I'm like, man, like don't worry about it. Don't sweat it. We'll come back. The Bills aren't doing that good anyway. Like, they're obviously, taking advantage of the opportunities we're giving them, which they should. But like other than that, like I didn't feel like they were running away with the game. So we were in it again until it wasn't. So fortunately, it was on the far end zone. We saw Andrews drop the ball, and that was that.
Damn.
But,
yeah.
But yeah, man, it was good. Obviously, it's better at the bank. It's better with a win. But all in all, I think shout out Bills fans and everything. I thought it was a pretty good experience. Except for coming home. Fucking getting out of there sucks. Like two roads to get out of there, like in like both directions, and they're like one way when you're getting out. It's just like it's so bad. So that was the worst. But other than that, like good experience.
What would you say the percentages were of like Ravens fans to Bills fans?
I mean, from the sections that I could see, I feel like it was probably under 15% Ravens fans.
Oh wow, okay.
Potentially less. It was not like a Ravens takeover.
That's interesting because there was like a lot of reports that a lot of tickets were being bought, from Maryland and from other non-New York areas that made people think that like that it might be more of a takeover. But I guess maybe like a lot of the tickets weren't actually for sale. You know what I mean? Like maybe it was a high percentage of the resale market, but not a high percentage of the actual, tickets.
Yeah, potentially. I mean, like, yeah, don't get me wrong. Like Ravens fans were around, but yeah, I didn't get the sense that there was a ton. There were enough. We could hear the O, obviously. We could do that. Everybody around us was like, "What the hell are you doing?" But
it feels like there was no like neutralness to the whole thing. Like even watching it on TV, I felt like there was no attempt to rattle the Bills' offense.
It'd be bad if I said no. Yeah, no, I didn't.
Well, I mean, I can't blame you. Like you didn't have support. You know what I mean? Like it's a support thing. Even at the bank, it feels awkward to be yelling and screaming your heads off when no one else around you is doing it, either because we're out of the game or out of the game because we're winning by so much. It drives me nuts because I think that's the only reason we should be there. But I know I'm a little bit nuts probably.
Yeah. Oh man, how was the cold? How cold was it?
Oh, it was not bad. Like, I mean, I have to check whatever the weather report was. It was probably like in the 16 or whatever. I was good. Shout out. I didn't get the Costco brand that you got, Alec, but like the seated socks, like great call.
It's a game changer, dude. I'm so happy for you. The sock gang is strong.
Yeah. I mean, it's just like I had them on medium the whole time, and it's not like my feet were like toasty or anything, but like they were not cold, and like that's the main thing.
That's the experience I have. Yeah.
Yeah.
They get toasty out when you're not outside, obviously, but like, it's just
but if I'm outside and I'm like, okay, like I can feel my feet, but like they're not freezing off and everything, like it's huge. So, but yeah, I had enough layers on and everything else. It was fine. So, yeah, just a little bit of flurries, pretty much all game. Like that whole day was basically like all flurries. But like you get a waterproof jacket and you're good.
Yeah, I think that flurries really hurt our team, not just because of the fumble that occurred, but I think it completely is why we didn't do any read option plays. I think they just thought it was too high risk to be doing those aggressive pulls, and I think that hurt us dearly. I really anticipated that they would key in on Henry like they were, and then Lamar would hold on and have to keep it more honest. And it's really impressive that Henry had the success he did, given the fact that Lamar really did nothing to keep him honest. Almost all Lamar's rushing yards were byproduct of scrambles, post attempted passes, and yeah, it's just one of those things where I think that whole part of our game plan was taken away. I can't imagine that wasn't a part of the game plan going in until they saw the conditions. And I think that really hurt us. And obviously the fumbles were just so brutal. I remember when Andrews fumbled it, the Lamar fumble was like one of those things where like that play was like busted to begin with. And I just like, I was sad about it, but like it was almost foreseeable. You know what I mean? But then the Andrews one, I was just like, oh, you got to be kidding me. Like, I just remember like looking at it just so blankly, like, oh man, like really nothing's going our way. Like it's not over, but it's, I thought it was so over for them because we were driving down the field and we had that. I thought we were going to have the time advantage. But just looking at it, I was like, we're going to probably get another drive and they won't. And even if they score, like we'll be able to have the last laugh. And like, I was just feeling really good at that point. And then the fumble happened. I was like, ooh, that's going to make it a lot harder now. And you're not going to win. You're going to just hope to get to overtime.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's really the most frustrating thing about how this season ended. I mean, with the exception of that first game against the Steelers this year in Pittsburgh, this team has done such a good job at not turning the ball over this year. And, I mean, Andrews hadn't had a fumble this year. He hadn't had a drop since the game against Washington. Lamar obviously had only had 4 picks all year. And that was really the difference. I mean, I think you bring up a great point with the read option and how that, hurt the offense. I think that we could also talk about, Zay Flowers not being there and how that may have limited some of the playbook as well. And also just, having one less of our most reliable, if not most reliable receiver out there for Lamar. But yet, even in spite of all of that, they still had such a good chance to win the game. And it really came down to just if they had just made, if just one of those plays hadn't been a turnover, or if they had been able to punch in the ball into the end zone when Bateman got down at the 2, or, if I'll give this one to you. Alec. You'll be very proud of me. If the refs hadn't thrown that flag on, White and what was it, Coleman getting, it really just came down to that's how close this game was, despite all the things that the Ravens could have done better. If just one of those things happened, they probably get out of there with like a 1-2 point lead. With all respect to the Bills, because the Bills played excellent. The Bills played a flawless game. But still, even despite all that, the Ravens had a great shot to win. And obviously, at the end of the day, it didn't happen. So it's all a bunch of what ifs. But I think that's why we as fans are yet again so frustrated, because we know this team could have done it, and yet we sit here once again.
Very Chiefs win. I think they did nothing impressive the whole game other than not punch themselves in the foot or shoot themselves in the foot, which I mean is impressive. Don't get me wrong, but like it wasn't like Allen was just crushing us. I think they were a little bit more physical at the beginning of the game. I think that's something I could tip my hat to them. But like, I felt like we never stressed them. They got some layups, they took them, and it's funny though, because like Chris, I felt the same way as you. Like people were texting me at halftime being like, uh-oh, like whatever. And I'm like, just see how they respond. Like, I am not worried, like I'm like, we've been down before. We have them right where we want them. I was saying about the whole, like, the offensive lineman giving Allen MVP, like, necklace thing before it happened. And now it looks like he's not going to win MVP. And I was like, they're all about like count chickens before they hatch. Like it's so over for them. But, and like, it kind of was, but then we fumbled and shit. And I'm like, man, like it's not so over. And yeah, I just, it's just a big bummer, man. I'm gutted for the whole team. But I honestly, like, I got over it real fast because I think last year we knew we were losing so many players where I was like, oh, man, it's going to be tough. But I did have the copium of, like, the core is really good. I think, like, as long as you have these guys, you'll be all right. They brought in Henry. They had the core. They had a couple of nice draft picks. And honestly, no, like, other free agent acquisitions were, like, super needle moving, but like Henry moved the needle so much more on his own that I think that's worthwhile. And then Kava came back and stuff, and it just gives me a lot more hope going into next year. Now, the one thing that we can't guarantee that can't go unnoticed is even though with the Zay injury, otherwise we were very healthy as a team all year long. Like we barely had any injury issues all year long. And that is just such a blessing that you can't expect again. And that's what's going to make next year super hard, in my opinion, is just the constant worry of injury. But, shout out to the training staff. Like, I feel like there might be actually a reason for all this. Like, they weren't that injured last year. They weren't that injured this year. Like, maybe they actually got something right with the overhaul of the training staff that they did. And yeah, so I don't know. I feel a lot better. I'm curious about you guys going into this loss, if you feel a little bit better than you did last year.
No.
Oh,
no,
sorry
I'll be honest. Yeah, I feel worse. I mean, we didn't make the AFC Championship game, right? And I still don't know if we can even beat the Chiefs in the playoffs. And I think something you said there really strikes it home for me, and why I'm still just trying to understand how the Ravens get over the hump that they seem to have in the playoffs. Consistently, when Lamar is healthy, even the 2 years when he didn't finish the season, the Ravens have always been one of the best, if not the best, team in the AFC in the regular season. And in the playoffs, we always see a different thing. And I think you really just, not everyone's going to agree with me on this, but I think you basically explained the whole problem when you're saying, well, the Bills didn't really do anything that impressive. I think that's the problem with the Ravens. I think they always try and do the impressive thing in the playoffs too much. And I think this year they got away from it more than they had in years past. I think that this game against the Bills was a step in the right direction, but we still see Lamar trying to do too much. That's why the fumble happened. I mean, it was a bad slap by Linderbaum too. I had forgotten that, and I was able to rewatch it today, and that was an errant snap to start with. But I think Lamar tried to do too much there, and when he should have just, tried to salvage and live for another day. I mean, Mark Andrews is not the same athlete that he was before the injury last year. You look at highlights of him in seasons past compared to this year, you can see he's not running the same. He used to be able to make that play. He can't now. He tried to do too much there. I think that the Ravens in the playoffs need to find some balance where, of course, when they do the spectacular, they're unstoppable. But the Bills, like you said, just played solid football and played a flawless game. No turnovers. Never, after the first possession, they were never down. Some ways the Ravens need to find a way to calm down the offense when you're in these tight games with the Bills and the Chiefs, who quite honestly are the only teams in the AFC right now, who can keep the Ravens out of the Super Bowl.
It doesn't help that the defense is also not, like, I don't want to say not making positive plays, because I mean they were able to stop a couple of drives and everything, but I feel like having the defense step up and create some turnovers to give the offense some more opportunities and to allow them to not have to be extra, I guess, as you would say, Peter.
Yeah,
I think that would be really helpful. But on the other hand, okay, well then you don't want the defense to be too extra and then miss a tackle because they were going for a fumble or something like that. But I hear what you're saying about the offense. Yeah, it is tricky. It feels like that part of the team, right now, that's the exciting part, the part of the team that's really going to be the difference makers. But yeah, you're right. They're just falling short in some of these playoff games. The whatever situations aren't working well for them, and then they end up making negative plays. And unfortunately, the defense just isn't good enough to kind of flip the script for them. But yeah, as far as where to go from here, I mean that's my only concern right now. It's just with the championship game, you're okay, cool, we'll retool. We got Henry. Okay, cool. Now we'll come back. Things are looking good. It was looking so close to that rematch, and now it's just well, we didn't get there. Now what?
Yeah.
What do you do? We already have everybody's getting a year older. There is, as far as I know, I don't think there's a signing akin to a Henry where we go out and it transforms the offense. It's We should have had everybody that we needed. You know what I mean? Like
I think we do have everyone. Yeah, I think that's like the only thing I would say. I said it on Twitter, which I don't recommend anyone really spend much time there. So maybe I should have put it on Blue Sky. But I was responding to a tweet by Cordell Woodland, and he's on Blue Sky. So maybe I really flubbed up. But I kind of saw it, and it's like, what do the Ravens do now? Like, what do they do to get over the hump? And I just said, like, I wouldn't worry too much about a single elimination tournament driving your process decisions, because I think they were kind of over the hump in many ways. I think they did a spectacular job in the preseason gearing up for this year. We were feeling really good about everything going forward. And I think what you brought up, Peter, is like this really hard problem of, we love against the Bengals when Lamar does ridiculous things and succeeds. Now, granted, they weren't a playoff team this year, but they were a playoff caliber team. I think there is something to be said, though, that when you try to do too much against a playoff team, like a really good team, that could be, a dance with the devil, because they're able to capitalize on smaller mistakes in a way that other teams maybe aren't able to. I think that's the tough part. I would love to have a more opportunistic defense. This defense is very unsexy. They grind you out to like a 3rd and 2, and then they stop you either by an incomplete pass or like a nice tackle for loss, which isn't like I'm still get hyped up for those plays, but they're not like, they very rarely do get like the dominating play at the end of the game against the Steelers, where they have like a sack and like it's a long field and they break up the quick rush, and then they break up the next play, and you're like, oh my God, this defense is like a force of nature. They kind of like just beg you to try to be perfect, and you probably will fail because they're above average. And like a ball hawk would be good, but I just feel like I'm not saying no to any of these kind of things, but I just feel like in the playoffs, man, you're going against these good quarterbacks. Like, it's so hard for them to like trip up. Like, I think it's just one of those things, man, that somebody's going to have a bad day. You look at all the other games, and you have this snow that just like completely impacts Stafford's ability to navigate the pocket. He's not particularly mobile in the first place, and like that offense just went from having some juice to no juice the second the snow like really started to increase. You look at the Lions, and they obviously had all those defensive injuries, but then everything that could go wrong did go wrong. Goff kind of like looked like what everyone thought Goff was before he started being good. It's just I think it's just tough, man. Like, the margins are so small in the postseason. Whatever team just happens to have a bad day is going to be the one that gets eliminated. It's so hard to overcome bad play. And I think they had a lot of answers this year, though. I think the run game was so much better. They took a risk on the offensive line, and it worked out. And I'm just excited to see everyone get a year older. Like, I know that is a problem for some of the players on the team potentially. Like Henry could, maybe not be a freak anymore, and finally hit an edge. Van Noy, the geriatric defensive line members. I'm thinking who else? Maybe Marlowe. Maybe Mark Andrews. Like, there are some like key players that are getting older. But then I also think about like another year for Wiggins to get older, another year for Rosengard to get older, another year for Trent Simpson to get older. And I'm like, ooh, I like these guys getting older. These guys could improve. So I don't know. I think I'm just excited to see the core come back. It looks like they'll be able to keep a lot of people together. They have some cap space. I don't know if like a number one wide receiver really helps at this point, or like another like great wide receiver weapon, because like Lamar's the number one receiver and running back. Like you're just taking away opportunities from Lamar. I don't know if that really helps. I think maybe I would invest more in the defense and the pass rusher. Like I would say Van Noy is the one thing I don't know if I can keep expecting to happen. How old he is and how much protections he's having. And, you look at like a job is probably not going to pan out. So it's one of those things where I think, yeah, like edge is a concern going forward. And like that could like help in like maybe like strip sacks. I don't know. But I don't know, man. I think they had it this year. I think they had it last year, and it's just they weren't able to get it done. And that just sucks.
They let him off the hook.
Yep. They had him.
Yeah.
Yep. I want to see the Ravens get another receiver. I think that, we really saw this year how much pairing Lamar with a true all-pro running back, an elite running back, really helped this offense out in certain games. You could make the argument that without Henry, the Ravens don't make the playoffs this year. And I know that's a bold thing to say, but there were some games where the passing game wasn't getting off to as good a start as you would have liked, and with how porous the defense was at the beginning of the season, being able to wear teams down with Henry and put those long drives out there, I think the Ravens would have had a much harder road to the playoffs without that. And I think that for a while, his fans are just like, why do we need a good running back? We got Lamar, right? Let's just throw out there Le'Veon Bell. Let's just throw out there, Devonta Freeman when they're way past their prime. And sure, the Ravens still able to win those games and probably would have made the playoffs those years if not for the Lamar injury. But it just seems so much easier this year with Henry. It seemed easier last year when Gus Edwards and was going through a career year, right? I mean, I think that you add in a competent receiver. I'm not saying go out there and, sign Mike Evans type player. Throwing that out there. I don't know who's up for free agency right now. But just someone who would have been Deontay Johnson that we were expecting, right? That's all I'm asking. I think that Wallace has potential, but I don't know if he's going to develop into that guy. Nelly was great the past 2 years. We need a better third wide receiver option than Nelly. I think try it and just see if that helps the offense even more, right? Look how much separation these receivers are already getting, how much they're going to get if you have 3 wide receivers that the defense has to respect. Lamar's never had that. So obviously it's going to be tight with cap. And again, I don't know who's out there. I didn't look at that before we did this, but it's something that I'm really interested to see them explore. And maybe they'll do it through the draft. I don't know. And maybe Tez Walker is that guy. But I think that given the fact that the Ravens have yet to make the Super Bowl with Lamar, the time for not exploring every, what's under every unturned rock is done. I think we've got to turn this offense and make it a thing where at the end of the season, there's no excuses. There's no what ifs. What if Deontay Johnson was the guy that we traded for? What if we'd kept Zeitler over and had him play over McCary? What if we had a ball hawk? In fairness, I think that last one's unfair because Marcus Williams and Eddie Jackson completely falling off cliffs. I don't know who could have saw that, but still, if you get what I'm saying, I think that the Ravens need to look at what are the things we haven't tried yet, because we keep seeing the same result in the postseason, and you got to try something new. And I think they did this year with Derrick Henry, and it didn't lead to a Super Bowl, but I don't think that means you don't keep trying.
The thing I come back to a little bit too is like, last year you could say play calling was like it was a huge topic of like we didn't run the ball enough. Okay. The game against the Bills, I think we ran the ball like a good bit. Like I at least for me, like I didn't really have any issues with the play calling. It was a good mix of run. And even, not just Henry too, like Hill had like some incredible runs. Like he had over 50 yards, I think, by halftime. He was getting like 9 yards a chunk. So, obviously we didn't have any like big, breakaway, touchdowns or anything like that. But when they needed to, they were picking up significant yards on the ground. So, so I don't think that was the problem. I think the offense and like how it was called, I think was pretty good. But yeah, then I look at like, okay, well, do we have reliable pass catchers? Some yes, some no, right? Like who would have thought, Mark having the fumble and then not being able to pull in the 2-point conversion, like you wouldn't think that he would be the first guy to like, drop the ball. Bateman maybe, maybe if you asked the beginning of the season, but like Andrews, like no. So maybe another receiver there might, but like I feel like that also was kind of a game that like we've played before. And like for whatever reason, we just like we're not able to like consistently just have people to like step up in big moments. So I really don't know what to do there. I will say on the defensive side, like I really would like to retool defensive line, and if we could pick up like a really great edge player, maybe make a trade or something like that. Like I really want to like throw the dice there. I kind of look at it of like the Bills were able to grind out a couple drives and come away with touchdowns where we should have forced field goals. And, the Bills are a very strong offensive line, very strong running team. You saw that. Like Cook wasn't as effective, I think, as some of the guys on the Ravens, but still he was like very explosive and he had a couple of big runs. And I really think like improving the defensive line there, I think could really help. And again, like I think it would help take pressure off the offense to need to perform their best in those situations. Like if the defense can force stops more consistently, or maybe make more, plays, negative plays more consistently, I feel like that could help out the offense a lot. Because I see what you're saying, Peter, and everything, and like trying to find another receiver. But I guess from what I'm saying, of like I feel like you tried that, and I feel like we've done the running back thing now, and it's just like I just don't know what more to like put on the offense right now besides just like get better.
You may have mentioned it. What receiver did we try?
I mean, I just feel like we put in a lot of draft capital. Obviously, like went out and got Bateman.
Gotcha.
We went out and got Zay. I mean, we put in money into Andrews. We got Likely. So like, we've tried. I mean, and then we tried like but this year with like Deontay, who just like did not work out at all. And even like free agents in other past years, right? We went out and got Odell and stuff like that. And like, we've tried to find these guys who we think can be like reliable in these critical situations to make the plays that we need to. And it's just like either they're not able to make them or they really haven't been a difference maker.
Well, and also,
I mean, like Zay last year, right? Like Zay played, Zay had a great season last year, but then ended up like, having the huge personal, foul penalty and then the taunting penalty and then like the, fumble at the end. It's like,
you're not getting the cream of the crop free agent wide receivers.
I was just bringing that up. I looked at the list. It's T. Higgins and no one.
Yeah, no. So that's the problem. Like everyone understands that it's a hot commodity. They don't really hit the market. Yeah, I mean, you see a lot of times if they don't want to pay them, they trade them. Right, so it's just you're not getting your best and brightest wide receivers in free agency. And that's why I really like what they're doing, taking these swings in the 4th round. I would draft one every year. I'm not against them drafting another number 1 because like top draft pick wide receiver. I don't know if this is the draft for it, but I'm not against them investing more in wide receiver at all because it's such a premium position. And you can't really have too many. We said all year how scary it would be if we lacked one of them. And Bateman really stepped up. I think Wallace really stepped up, but it's not where I want to live in very long. And yeah, like getting another one in there.
Bateman, maybe, man, he really turned it on at the end. Like that touchdown catch from him, like that was incredible. That was one of the greatest. That was one of the highest highs during the game that I had.
Bateman's here. Like I love what he's doing. His red zone presence is like really something to talk about, right?
Yeah.
I've always been in the bag. I still love him. I think he's great. I'm so happy that he's like now actually like producing at the level we all hoped he could.
Bateman against the Bills showed me the game I wanted to see before I would say that I think he's ready to be a number 1.
Yeah.
He did what I wanted to see. I'm fully on board now.
I don't want to like, drag on Andrews or anything, but like, I feel like, what if you threw that to Bateman? Like, especially after his touchdown earlier in the game, like, I feel like he would come down with it. And like, that's even like knowing like there are several games that Bateman had like really inopportune, drops, right? Like the Browns game. Like, but I feel like if he was in that position at the end, like he probably would have made that. That's how confident I was with him.
The one thing Bateman needs to work on is just communication between him and Lamar. It's gotten way better. I feel like it wasn't terribly great last year. This year, obviously, 3 of Lamar's interceptions this season out of 5, including the postseason, were on throws intended to him. How much of those were Lamar thought's fault? How much for Bateman? We could debate, but I still think it was a big improvement from last year. I mean, you go through every player; everyone has a flaw that they need to work on. So I don't think we, say he's not worthy of being a top target in the offense because of those, couple mishaps that he had. But yeah, I think he's finally back from gotten through the injuries. Hopefully he can stay healthy. I think that he's the next rising up on this offense. And Mark Andrews is an interesting one. I'd love for the Ravens to keep him, but we'll have to see what happens with contracts, right? I mean, I think they need to find a guard that's not McCary. I think McCary is our 6th lineman. I don't think he's a starter. I think they need to find depth at cornerback. That's we've talked. They need depth at defensive line. Are you going to be able to get those in free agency while continuing to pay Mark even on a rework contract? I think that's going to be something we're going to be watching in the off season.
I don't know, dude, Mark. He's such a big part of this franchise and such an impressive player. But I just feel like, if I'm going to extend somebody for like real money for real years, it's going to be likely at this point. That's just like, it brings me no pleasure saying that. I feel like if we're going to keep Mark Andrews around, it has to be at a team friendly deal. And that's just, it sucks. And it's not even just about the performance in the playoffs over the years and the really detrimental play in the last game. It's just, like you said, he's just not the same athlete. And I hope that another year away from injury, he looks much better next year, right? But I don't know if that's realistic. He's not that old, he plays a position where I feel like you can kind of get old fast. And I don't know. I have concerns about him now that I just didn't really have until this year. And I don't know, man. I don't know. It's super tough. Part of me thinks that I think DaCosta might not. If anything, it wouldn't surprise me if DaCosta adds void years that he then restructures again on his deal to make it more palatable to the cap this year, if that's like what he wants to do, and keep him together one more year and get one more data point on him, and maybe just say, you know what, similar to kind of what he did with Stanley, like I'd rather get more data on you and then have to figure it out later than to commit those dollars now. I could see that.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's the other part of it too, is just like, he's been such a good team leader, like you said. I mean, gosh, everyone came to the man's defense. Everyone came to the man's defense at the end of the game. I mean, Lamar
he had a captain patch and no one batted an eye. I mean, Mark Andrews is so locked in. He's so laser focused. He cares so much. He's a guy you want on your team. Don't get me wrong. It's just like, it's just tough, man.
Oh, what I'm talking about is strictly the business side. That's strictly what I'm talking about for all the reasons you said. I mean, I even brought it up at the beginning of the season. Like I was saying, I don't know what we're going to see of Mark coming up, because the injury he had was a big one. And look, like I said, you watch highlights of Lamar. Not Lamar. I mean, Lamar's in the highlights, of course, of Andrews, even in 2023 before the injury, and compare it to this season, he's a completely different athlete. He can't run the same. He was way more aggressive and way more quick after the catch, a force to bring down. Just look at any one play from before the injury and compare it to his long run against Houston. He doesn't have the same sprint currently. Maybe he gets it back, but it's tough. It's tough, especially at that age. So what's great about Mark, though, I mean, he's so skilled and his football IQ is incredible. I mean, and the connection with Lamar, he's been here with Lamar's whole career, and if this was a sport where there wasn't a salary cap and you could pay everyone, of course, Mark Andrews, we're keeping him on the team till he decides to hang it up. Even if he's Likely's backup, we're keeping him on the team. But the business side of it makes it, I could see them saying that they need that money elsewhere.
Yep.
Yeah, this part of the season sucks.
No doubt.
You got so many guys.
Yeah,
so many guys.
Look, I'm literally wearing my Mark Andrews jersey here to support the guy because he needed to make that catch, of course, and he knows that. But man is given blood, sweat, and tears and heart. I don't know if anyone else, Lamar Jackson might be the only guy who's given more to this team, since 2018 than Mark Andrews. I mean,
yeah, I think that's safe to say.
Yeah.
Tough. Anything else, guys? Anything else you want to talk about for this game?
You know who else we need to find for next year? We need to find a somebody to take over the punt return job. Sims, I think he did okay for the. It's not like he had like a terrible game or anything, but like I sweated a little bit, I think, on some of the kicks that he was fielding, and I ended up making a couple of plays, and obviously filled in for Zay and on a couple of snaps on the offense. But I do feel like that's a position that I want to take a look at. But it'll be super interesting too. Like I have no idea if the NFL is going to continue with this kickoff change experiment or anything. But I could see at least somebody like a Prochet who just had like really good hands, and you're just like, oh yeah, he's like not going to drop this punt. But if they end up maybe tweaking the kickoff rules a little bit, maybe that might be to see who we can bring in to just take the full returner job. But I don't know if that's on the docket for this year or not. But
they'll definitely have a new returner. I have no doubt about it. I want to never think about the returner. I want to go back to those glory days, which, by the way, is like every year of my fandom. It's so rare to have to worry about if the returner is going to actually catch the ball. That happens. Like, don't get me wrong, people muff kicks. Like, it happens every year, but it is not like a constant concern, and it's just unacceptable. Like that. We will. I think we will have that solved next year. I really do.
Yeah.
And honestly, I feel like I'm stunned they didn't solve it this year, because I feel like Tylan Wallace, like he was right there.
We had a couple of weird
too big of a part
misfires. Yeah, we had a couple of weird misfires. I think DaCosta did. Like, I mean, he has done a lot of really, really great things, but like, Hardy was nowhere to be seen for most of the season.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, Millette, like, he played like one game. Or no, he didn't play. No, he didn't play at all, right? He got hurt during practice.
I think he had a game.
There was one game he played. I think it was the Denver game.
Okay. Yeah, like, I mean, obviously, like, not going to make or break the roster or anything, but like, just some guys who, we thought would have significant impacts and just did not.
Yeah, he was in the Cincy, Denver, and Cleveland games. So 3 games this year.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree. I think the thing that DaCosta's done is he has not missed on a first round pick. He has been incredibly good with his bets. The last couple of years too, in particular. I think he's really grown into his role very nicely. It's cool too. Like, I just think Ravens fans are so spoiled by the continuity we've had with Ozzie and now EDC and Harbaugh and Billy, I guess a little bit before that and stuff. But like, really just you see those two guys take a press conference. They like are next door neighbors. EDC even said it in the press conference at the end of the year. Like, they fight, but they know that each other loves each other, and like they're on each other's side, and then they'll come back together the next day. And one of them, Harbaugh will be like, "I think you're right," or "I still feel like I'm right." But like, it's very respectful. They figure it out, and they're not like, they work together, and that is not a given. There are a lot of, like, just look at the Giants. Like, there are a lot of teams where the GM and coach are not aligned. There is a whole saga in Jacksonville that just went down because of head coaches and GMs. Like,
and owners not being aligned.
This is why good franchises stay good, is that there's so many bad franchises that just they're shooting themselves in the foot and like just like refuse to operate in a winning way.
Yeah.
We are so lucky.
Please, actually, hold on. The thing with Jacksonville, please tell me that means that Monken is not. Did somebody get hired? I don't.
So the Raiders haven't hired anybody, right? The Raiders are still available.
The Raiders are still available.
Yeah, but
has Monken interviewed with the Raiders?
Yes.
Crap.
99% sure he has.
Crap. We do need to keep him.
But I honestly, I don't know if he'll go to the Raiders. I
hope not. They're terrible franchises.
I feel decent about Monken staying, but I don't want to jinx it.
Did you have a beer with him? Where are you getting this information?
What bar? What bar?
Yeah, I wish I.
Then know what bar.
Sounds like so much fun. I think he actually would be the number one coach I would love to share a beer with on the Ravens staff right now, because he's just such a whippersnapper.
He really is. It would be fun.
No, my hunch is just that like he's an older coach, right? And like there's just nothing there. Like it's not a team that I would want to go to as an older coach. Like it's like a major work in progress. So I don't know. I just don't see it.
On that note, I don't know. Do we want to say what's something fun we'll remember from this season, or is that just not that time yet?
I mean, that could be a vignette episode thing, but I think it's fine if we do it now. Henry. Honestly, the best thing of the year was 1-2 going against the Bills. Tough team, can't go 1-3. Henry gets the ball and just goes down the field. I just remember how the bank was so electric at that moment. It's one of those moments of the year that I won't forget. And I think that was just a cool moment, like game, all that good stuff. That for me will probably be the number one thing.
Yeah, I feel like, Henry's year will be something that, through the years we'll love revisiting. It'll be something we tell our kids about. It was a big season, one of the biggest individual performances in Ravens history. I think that's an all-timer, regardless of the outcome of this season. I think for me, that would have been my number one thing to say too. But I think a close number two is just the two epic back and forth games we had with Cincinnati this year. I mean, both those games, frustrating, absolutely, but just absolutely incredibly exciting games. So many big plays the Ravens made in those games. Tight wins in both cases. I'd certainly exactly. I'd certainly love for us to sweep the Bengals next year in much less dramatic fashion, because both those games were quite stressful to take in live in real time. But I mean, those are fun, exciting games that, those are saying, in the middle of summer and you're missing football and you think about, some game to watch the highlights of. And I think those are ones that'll be in heavy rotation, in years to come.
Honestly, I feel like you guys took my top two, but honorable mention. I think the Steelers game at home. I know I didn't get to see that one live, but there were a lot of really big plays from that one. Like the Humphrey interception return, I think was pretty huge. It just felt good to finally get like monkey off her back, or the monkey off Lamar's back, I guess, and like not being able to beat the Steelers.
Beating them in the playoffs felt good too. Like, don't get me. I think that could be a very good one from the year.
Yeah.
Like,
no, it did feel good, but yeah, I don't know. It was a little bit of a different game, I guess. But yeah, Henry definitely a big one. Gosh, you're just like so many big plays throughout the season and everything. But yeah, that run against the Bills was, that was like, he is here.
I also think Lamar is a leader. I went back and listened to our show after the AFC Championship loss, and I remember saying like how he ended that press conference afterwards. I was like, oh yeah, like this guy, he's gonna get his back. Like I just feel like the leadership tone changed, and that just happened this year. I felt like there was a whole nother level of locked in. It's like one of those things where like they almost become like what the last year's version was, where it's like they were saying they were locked in, and I don't think they were not locked in, but they just seemed even more locked in this year and even more like stoic and serious. And I just felt like the leadership was really there, and then kind of the symbolism of them finally using the captain's patches, which I felt like awful as a fan, not knowing that they were never deployed them. But I guess it like once I realized like, oh yeah, they've never used them. That's so weird. Like, and so many teams like have, they have like the all four, and then they magically becomes gold. You know what I mean? Like they have like the full achievement unlock version, and everyone on our team is just like one because they just finally started doing it. So I'm curious to see if they break it out next year, but it's just wild. Like, why did the Ravens never do that before? Is it because they were just one to always be like the team? Like there's no one captain. I don't know. But anyways, it was such a telling moment. I felt like when they broke those out, it was very symbolic. And yeah, very wild.
Yeah. I think that a lot of great things happened this year. Overall, good season, in my opinion. I understand not all fans will agree with that, and I think that's completely fine. Everyone's going to fan the way they do. I'm disappointed the Ravens didn't win, but the Super Bowl. But there was a lot they did well. And look, the Bills are a good team. We got to realize that the Chiefs and Bills, year in and year out, it seems like in the Lamar era, that's the competition. Those are our real rivals. The Bengals, when they get a defense, are in there too. But look at it next year. That's all they can do right now.
Well, I guess we'll just wrap it up then. That's the show for this divisional loss in the playoffs. I hope you're doing all right out there with everything going on in the world as well. And we'll be back, I guess, eventually. Like, I think probably next week, right? Do vignettes. We'll figure it out. We'll schedule it. The last regularly scheduled show of One Mini Pod. And yeah, go Ravens.